you today to our Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting of November 18, 2021 of the Region of Peel. And with this, I will ask now our Madam Clerk to go over the protocol procedures for the electronic participation of members. Over to you, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Good afternoon. My name is Rusha Khan, and I'm the Committee Clerk for the Region of Peel Accessibility Advisory Committee. I will provide a very shortened review of the protocols for electronic meeting participation. Recorded votes are not allowed at committee meetings. The committee chair or I will call for any objections. If you have an objection, please unmute your microphone and indicate your name and objection. Members participating electronically that need to leave the meeting, please send an email to council@peelregion.ca. If you would like to request to speak, please raise your hand in WebEx by clicking on the hand raised icon in your participant list. For a full view of the presentation, please use the stack or side-by-side layout view. This meeting is being live streamed. In order to ensure that the meeting remains accessible to the public, the meeting will be recessed for 15 minutes in the event that the live stream is interrupted or fails. Staff will work to get the live stream up and running as soon as possible. We shall now commence the meeting with roll call. Citizen Member Shamila.
Here.
Thank you. Citizen Member Caroline.
Here.
Thank you. Committee Chair Raj.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Citizen Member Paula.
Present.
Thank you. Committee Vice Chair Mary.
Here.
Councillor Fortini. Councillor Fortini. Councillor Groves.
Present, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Groves.
Present.
Thank you. Citizen Member Naz.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Regional Chair Yanika.
Here.
Thank you. Citizen Member Azar.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Mahoney.
Good afternoon, present.
Thank you. Citizen Member Anu. Citizen Member Anu. Councillor Sinclair.
Here.
Thank you. Citizen Member Maureen.
Here.
Thank you. I will turn the meeting over to our committee chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do I have any declarations of conflicts of interest? Hearing none, can I have a mover to approve the agenda? Thanks, Carolyn. We have no delegations today, so we move on to the reports. The first report, item 5.1, is on affordable housing project, a rapid housing initiative located at 5 Rutherford Road South in Brampton, Ward 3. And the presenters are Julia Marquez and Tiffany Kashaf, and they will be presenting an overview of the project with focus on accessibility features. So over to you, Ms. Julia and Tiffany. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving us the time today. My name is Julia Marquez. I'm part of the IBI group. I'm here today with Tiffany Toshaf and Joe Somfei, who will be here to answer any of your questions that you may have after the presentation. And we're here to present the 5 Rutherford affordable housing project on its accessibility features. I'm going to turn off my camera so the presentation runs more smoothly. I will try to be as descriptive as I can of the slides, but if there is, if I'm going too fast, please let me know and I'll try to adjust. Okay, next slide, please. The purpose of this presentation is to highlight the accessibility content and features included in the 5 Rutherford Affordable Housing Project. Next slide, please. The project is located in 5 Rutherford Road South in Brampton. The slide shows an aerial view extracted from Google Maps that is highlighting the location of the building where it's currently located. Next slide, please. This slide is showing a picture of the existing building as it currently stands with a perspective from the Rutherford Road. As you can see, the building is currently was functioning as a hotel. As you can see the sign there. Next slide, please. This slide reads building design information. The project's objective is to convert an existing hotel that was built in 1985 to affordable housing units, and we aim to achieve occupancy starting March 2022. The building area is 1,950 square meters with a gross floor area of 3,800 square meters approximately, with 2 stories. We're showing a table breakdown of how the units are laid out. There's a total of 67 units in the building, 31 one-bedroom and 36 bachelor units. 6 of these one-bedroom units are accessible, and 5 of the bachelor are accessible units as well, for a total of 11 units in total. The next slide, please. This slide shows the exterior design that is proposed for the intervention. We're showing a combination of fiber cement panels in different colors to highlight different areas of the building, with a stone base surrounding the building in the lower area that it's sensitive to the existing textures and tones in some of the areas of the building that are not going to be changed. Next slide, please. This slide shows a site plan level 1, and it shows a plan view drawing of the building and its immediate context, highlighting what the barrier-free paths, the barrier-free circulation, the entrances, and emergency exits, as well as the barrier-free parking spots. The 2 main entrances are facing Rutherford Road, with a secondary entrance on the north that is connected to the outdoor amenity space. There are a total of 4 accessible parking spots that are evenly divided close to the entrance, as you can see with the light blue color displayed on the slide. Next slide, please. This slide highlights the building entrances. It's showing an enlarged plan view of the main entrance of the apartment area, and it's highlighting the barrier-free paths and the barrier-free circulation and emergency exits and entrance. As accessible feature, this area has a proximity sensor sliding doors in the vestibule entrance that is connected to a fob system. The vestibule is large enough to allow for a 360-degree turn, accessible mailboxes located in the mail area, wide entrance doors, and a waiting area that will be provided with seating. This area is also covered by an existing canopy that it will be restored in some capacity. Next slide, please. This slide shows the building entrance on the youth side, highlighting the barrier-free circulation. As accessible features, it has a proximity sensor sliding door in the vestibule that will be connected to a fob system, a power door operator, and the youth exterior door, an ample vestibule for a 360-degree turn, wide entrances, and a barrier-free accessible ramp with a waiting area that will be provided by seating. There's also an accessible sign-in counter in the vestibule. Next slide, please. This slide shows the building entrance on the north side. We're showing an enlarged plan view of the north side. In this case, this area features a new barrier-free accessible door with a power operator and a barrier-free accessible ramp that allows connection to the outdoor amenity space. Next slide, please. The level 1 plan is showing this slide. We're showing a plan view of the first floor, and we're showing different colors, all the areas that are relevant. Where in blue we have the barrier-free circulation, we have the 1-bedroom units in yellow, and the bachelor units in green. The darker green represents the accessible bachelor units, and the darker yellow shows the accessible, the barrier-free 1-bedroom units. We have a total of 3 1-bedrooms and 3 bachelor accessible units in this level, and we're also showing the accessible common spaces, which are the laundry rooms and the multipurpose room in the light pink. Next slide, please. The level 2 plan shows the second floor of the project. In the same capacity, we're showing the different type of spaces with the coloring. The dark green is showing the bachelor unit, the accessible bachelor units, and the dark yellow is showing the accessible 1-bedroom unit. We have a total of 3 units, 3 1-bedroom units, and 2 bachelor units in this level, as well as the program space that is accessible. Next slide, please. This slide, it shows the elevators, and we're showing an enlarged plan view of the elevators. The elevator, this features 2 new elevators with ample cabin size to provide access to the second floor. Elevator cabins can accommodate and provide adequate space for a stretcher in the prone position as per Ontario Building Code. The elevators are provided with handrails, visual signal, and voice enunciator, as well as braille signage. And there is a wall accent design and accent lighting in elevators in the waiting area to highlight the significance of this new feature in the building. Next slide, please. Here we're showing an image of what the intention of that accent design by the elevators with bright colors, an accent wall, and accent lighting, with as well as different textures between the flooring and the walls in the corridor. Next slide, please. This is a multi-purpose room where we want to show an enlarged plan view of the area and how it is connected to the main entrance. As accessible features, its entrance is right by the wide corridor that allows for ease of access in the barrier-free path. It has a centralized location close to the main entrance and elevators, power door operator at entry. Its area is ample and is well lit, and it will allow for different activities to be carried out in this room. And it is adjacent to the universal washroom. Next slide, please. This slide shows the universal washroom. There's an enlarged view of the universal washroom proposed. Is as accessible features. It has ease of access in the barrier-free path, centralized location close to the main entrance and elevators. Adjacent to the multipurpose room, it has a power door operator at entry, accessible lavatory and sink, grab bars at key locations where required, space and provisions for a future adult-sized change table, transfer space as per OBC requirements, and space for a 360-degree turning, as well as emergency call buttons. Next slide, please. This slide shows the elevations of all the plumbing fixtures and accessories to be installed in the universal washroom with the required mounting heights as per OBC and best practice. Next slide, please. This slide shows a program space located on the second floor with an enlarged view plan of the space. The space features a power door operator at entry, a barrier-free washroom within the space that has transfer space as per OBC requirements, space for a 360-degree turn, and grab bars at key locations, as well as adequate plumbing fixtures. The program space area is well lit and ample to allow for different activities. Next slide, please. This slide shows a barrier-free one-bedroom typical layout that we're proposing around the building. It has a total of 49 square meters area. There's a total of 6 units of this type or similar in the building. As accessible features, it has a power door operator at entry, fully accessible bathrooms with large space at the entrance for a 360-degree turn, grab bars where required at different locations, barrier-free vanities, and a corporate shower bases for wheelchair roll-in accessibility. The kitchens are fully accessible kitchens with lower counters and open shelving in the upper cabinets, barrier-free sinks with underside clear room, accessible drop-in stove in barrier-free kitchens, and a countertop location for the microwave and a refrigerator with a lower freezer for easy access. We're showing a large plan view of the unit, so you can see how it lays out with colors differentiating each space, so you can see it there better. Next slide, please. This slide shows elevations of barrier-free kitchen millwork in the one bedrooms. As previously mentioned, the lower counters, the space for the microwave, the drop-in stove, and the clear underside under the sink. Next slide, please. This is the barrier-free bachelor typical. This unit has a total area of 31 square meters. There's a total of 3 units of this type or similar in the building. As accessible features, it has a wide corridor of 1100 millimeters, power door operators at the entry, fully accessible bathrooms, and fully accessible kitchens. It's very similar to the one bedroom as mentioned previously. Next slide, please. These are the other barrier-free. This slide shows the other barrier-free layouts that we're proposing. There is one of each type of units in the building. They vary from 25 square meters to 31 square meters, and they have all the other features presented as the wide corridors, the power door operators and entry, and the fully accessible bathrooms and kitchens. Next slide, please. This slide shows a barrier-free bachelor millwork kitchen with giving a reference of the features previously mentioned with the lower counters and the drop-in stove and the space under the sink. Next slide, please. As additional features that we are presenting throughout the building, we are showing the slide shows an example of typical door lever that would be used around the building for easy handling. The next picture shows an example of the door with vision panels. The doors that have vision panels, we have a lower panel to allow for viewing at a lower height. The next image is an example of the signage that will have Braille language included in the signage. Next slide, please. Other accessibility features that will be carried out through the building is we have a handrail proposed in the corridors throughout the building on one side, as you can, and then it would be similar to what's seen in the picture on the far left. We're also proposing to have vision strips in all the glazing and screens and panels to be easy to identify. And lastly, we'll have tactile indicators at all the top landings and at the bottom of all ramps throughout the building. These are images for reference only to give an example of what we're proposing in the building. Next slide, please. Well, I hope I kept to the 10 minutes, but I will allow for questions or comments for all the members if there's any. Me and my team will, and the team will be happy to answer.
Thanks, Julia. Well, we have a first question from Carolyn. Yes, go ahead, Carolyn.
Hi, I actually have a few, so I'll run through them all and then you can address them just for time. So, garbage removal, is there garbage chutes or accessible garbage access in the back? Was that addressed? I didn't notice it in the plans. The other thing, I know this was just the building itself, but I'm hoping that we're looking at relieving areas for service animals on the property. Then in the accessible washrooms, I find after execution, after everything is put in, all of a sudden somebody goes, oh, we need to stick a garbage can in here. And it's always put where now it starts to interfere with radius turning or somebody blind not being able to find it, etc. So let's always ensure to have that in the floor plan. Plus hooks at various levels in that common area, in that washroom. You know, people might need to hang up their purse or their coat. And of course, multi-levels for the fact that people can be short, medium, or very tall. And the type of hand dryer, I'm thinking that it was the type that comes down with the V and the blow on each side of the V. One thing we shouldn't be having, and we're seeing them everywhere, these ones where we have to stick our hands in. Terrible for somebody with short arms, somebody blind, children, arthritis. I hear complaints from everybody. Sorry. Interior door handles in the apartments, will they all be lever style too? What types of door handles for the kitchen and washroom doors? We want to make sure it doesn't cause where somebody can't open them. The accessible sign, there's no color contrast, and we have to remember that. You have a white, silver, or gray sign with white, silver, or gray icons or wording. That's only great for somebody with 20/20 vision, who doesn't have depth perception, who doesn't have any color blindness. Handrails in the hallways, once again, we're seeing a monochrome color, white on gray, white on steel, steel on gray. These are terrible for many people. The strip glazing on doors, and I always find this so funny that they say this is for vision. And once again, it's these opaque colors. And whose vision? Somebody with 20/20, without color blindness, without depth perception. If you're going to put a glazing on a window or a door, make it that you can see it and not just 10% of the population. So that's all of my notes. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. So now, Tiffany, you can respond to these questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. I can answer some, and Tiffany, feel free to jump in if I missed anything. On the garbage room, the garbage room doors are power operated, and there is access for very free. On the second floor, there is a garbage chute that is also has a door with a power operator, so it is accessible for that. So that is covered, even if I didn't mention it. For the barrier-free units, we are providing closet space with hooks at different levels to accommodate for different heights and reach. So we're covering that. For the levers, we are proposing the lever hardware on all the doors in the interior as well. For the color contrast in signage and the vision strip, yes, it will be high contrast. It may have not been the better picture to show, but we are considering it to be high contrast for the reasons you mentioned, as well as the tactile indicators. They're usually going to be a bright yellow or something similar. As for the hand dryer, I will leave that to Tiffany because she's more familiar with the specific hardware that we're showing there, as well as the service animals.
Thank you so much. And kudos. I know you guys covered a lot of accessibility, so kudos on that.
No, thank you. And thank you for your comments. Definitely something very helpful to hear such a straight feedback and to make sure that we're covering all our bases.
Okay, I will maybe just start with the relieving area for service animals. On the site plan to the north, we do have an outdoor amenity space, and to the left of that is a grass area, as well as there is grass on other portions of the site as well. In terms of, you had mentioned about garbage bins in washrooms. We have accommodated that. We have combination units that are partially recessed into the wall. So, and we've also made sure that we meet the clearance requirements in the transfer space, that they're not impeding. We do have hooks as well, which meet the Ontario Building Code requirements in those washrooms, as well as a shelf. Other than that, the hand dryer, the one that we have specified, is a barrier-free unit, and it's not one that you would put your hands into. It kind of comes out from the wall a little bit and comes down on an angle, and then mounting heights have been considered. And I'm just looking to see if there were any other items that we did not address.
I'm not sure we did address the kitchen and the washroom, how people can open the cupboard doors. Sometimes we see round knobs or this, metal sharp strip. That's something we have to be careful of.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you for that comment. We'll take that back to the team and make sure that what we've specified would meet those requirements.
Thank you. And I do know, though, with those hooks, if you look at OBC and AODA, they don't mention having 3 heights. But I know from the community, from what I hear from other people, whether they're short stature or very tall stature, we do need the 3 heights. It's not in AODA or OBC, but I do hear a lot of complaints in the community. But thank you, like a lot of accessibility. Kudos.
And thank you for your comments, and we'll take them back to the team as well.
Thanks, Tiffany. Are there any other questions?
Hi, Raj. I think Maureen has a question.
Yes, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I also have a few questions as well. And first of all, I'll ask them all together, and then you can answer them like you did for the Carol Ann. First of all, is there any balconies off the units? How many parking spots are there altogether? Out of the parking spots, I think you said only 4 of them are accessible. I'm just wondering, we have 11 units and only 4 parking spots. visitor parking. Is there visitor parking, and are there any, for the visitor parking, any accessible parking spots? That's it.
All right. Thank you, Maureen, for your questions. If I hear correctly, it was whether there was balconies and the parking arrangement. We don't have balconies in this project for any of the areas or any of the suites. We do provide outdoor amenity spaces for both the youth and the apartment area. They're in different areas of the building. As for the parking, we have a total of 77 parking spots, and we weren't required to have 11 parking spots. We're only required to have a minimum of 4. But I think Tiffany can expand more on that if she may.
Thank you, Julia. So, Tiffany, would you provide some more information? Actually, I also thought about the number of parking spots. So, let's hear from Tiffany.
Perfect. And also on the call, we do have some other members from the Region Appeal team as well. So Brett or Gord, please feel free to jump in the parking numbers as well. With the use and the tenants at the location, it's not expected that every individual will have a car. We also have provided bike parking, not that that's necessarily an accessible feature, but not every tenant will have a vehicle. So that's where the numbers were derived from with the zoning bylaw requirements, and then also the use of the building. And we do not have dedicated visitor parking at this location. It's just parking available for anyone visiting the space.
So what you're saying.
Thank you, Tiffany. Any more questions?
Oh, I think actually Brett looked like he was putting up his hand there to talk just about the programming and the parking.
Thank you. Just to add on to the parking situation, to just let folks know the youth transitional housing component, the youth that will be staying there will not have vehicles. As well, this particular project is serving very low income individuals and households in the Region Appeal. These are folks that are currently homeless or on the verge of being homeless. So we're not expecting the tenants based on income levels that will be living here probably will not have their own vehicles. If need be, we do have a significant amount of parking on this site because it's an existing hotel site. In the future, if we needed to adapt and increase the parking spots, that's something we could take a look at. But right now, the parking has been set up based on what we believe the need will be based on the tenant profile.
Thanks, Brett.
Maureen?
Any other questions from other members?
Raj, I see Maureen has her hand up, Carol Ann, as well as Shamila and Naz.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you will maintain the order. So we start with Maureen.
Yes, in regards to the parking, there are 77 parking spots. Out of that, 4 are designated accessible parking. Is that that's according, I guess, to the requirements for any parking lot in normal circumstances, but because of the fact that this building has 11 units that are for people with disabilities, I would suspect that 4 is actually not enough. And especially since there may be for the whole building, people visiting those people in there, whether they have disabilities or not, or in the barrier-free buildings, they would have visitors who have disabilities as well. So I'm just wondering if the site plan could include more spots for accessibility. That's it.
Thanks, Maureen. So, Rusha, we have Shamila as the next person asking questions.
I saw Carol Ann had her hand up as well.
Oh, and mine sort of relates to Maureen's. So maybe the same person can answer it. Are they type A or type B accessible parking spots or a mixture? Thank you.
So Raj, we have Shamila on the board and Naz as well had her hand up.
Okay, so we start with Shamila.
Hi, Madam Chair. My question is, there's no balcony space. So this is an existing building. The windows, how many windows in a disability unit? That's my question.
I think Tiffany, do you want to speak to the windows?
Sure. Yeah. So we are working as you mentioned, it is an existing building. We are working with also existing openings in the exterior walls. So for the majority of the units, if they are a bachelor unit, they would have one large window. If it is a one-bedroom unit, there is a window in the bedroom and a window in the common space.
I will add to that that most of the bachelor units are the L-shaped kind, so they do have two windows.
Thank you for clarifying.
The accessible units. Yes.
Thanks, Tiffany. So Carolyn, Naz, I think, is the next one. Naz, you have a question?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to. First of all, it would have been great if this project had come to our subcommittee, because as you can tell, there's so many questions and comments going back and forth, which is much longer than the presentation itself. So, maybe that's fault of ours that we had not planned it that way. My question is, well, you're doing a great job in terms of incorporating as much as and hopefully beyond. You do talk about the OBC, but please look at other handbooks like the City of Mississauga, FAD's handbook, as well as, and Veronica could correct me here, but we had put together quite a bit with the region appeal as well in terms of things to follow, although that may require some updates. So kudos to you for what you're trying to do. I believe this is a region of peer building, and we've been also talking in the City of Mississauga AAC about housing. One of the recommendation that came up in that committee is from our councillor, Pat Sado, is that we all work together to encourage the province to bring the private sector on board. So as you said, this is for people with very low income, but there's a lot of people with disabilities of all various incomes who want to live in their own residences and need to be able to buy. So I don't know how we can approach that, but hopefully we can in some way. But in the meantime, do look at these other handbooks, and hopefully in future we'll have a presentation like this in a subcommittee where we can really go through all the nitty-gritty. Thanks.
Thanks, Naz. However, some of the points raised earlier, would you like to add on some of the suggestions which have been made to make some improvements, such as more parking spots and more windows? They have already explained that there are windows, no balconies, but windows in each room. So would you like to suggest any other thing at this point in time? Well, I'm hearing none. So any more questions about the presentation?
Hi, Raj. I don't see anybody on the request to speak list.
So
we'll just have...
Julia, Brett,
sorry,
and,
Raj, sorry, we'll just have to receive the presentation and move receipt for the recommendation.
Yeah, I was going to say that that there has been some suggestions made, which I guess the project team will incorporate. But at the same time, we have a staff recommendation that the site plan for this project be approved. So at this time, I can ask Madam Clerk to go over the recommendation, and then we can say if all members agree, and so we can proceed on with that. So Rusha, would you please read out the recommendation made by staff?
Yes, definitely I can do that, but I do see Shamila's hand is back up. So just want to make sure if there's any more questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, if there's no balcony, there's a limited window space for a disability unit, my recommendation would be a little bit of outdoor vision for people would do good indoor. If they have mobility difficulties to go out, at least a window to look out, a bigger window. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you, Shamila. Rusha, are there any other questions?
I do see Commissioner Sheehy's on board.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
Oh, hi. Thank you very much. And I certainly appreciate all the feedback that you're providing. As you can see, we work very hard to try to exceed the accessibility standards. But I did want to just remind the committee that it is much more challenging when you are taking an existing building or an existing footprint and working within it. Having said that, we will certainly take all of your input very seriously and see if we can make some changes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. So,
I see Tiffany's hand is up.
Okay, go ahead.
I would just note that even though we are working with existing openings and existing windows, the existing windows are actually fairly low and quite large for the spaces.
So thanks very much, Tiffany. I don't see any hands. Rusha, do you see?
Yes, I see Julia's hand is up.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add to wrap up. We did take into consideration the regional appeals guidelines for design for accessibility, as well as the OBC and the technical standards for accessibility from the Brampton, from the city of Brampton. So those were taken into consideration. And thank you everyone for your comments, and we'll definitely try to integrate as much as we can from all your suggestions. And on the parking spots, we do have type A and type B mix in the designation. I think we have missed answering that. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Julia. Any more questions, Rusha?
I don't see anybody on the request to speak list.
So we have had all the comments, and some good suggestions have been made, and then the presenters and commissioner have assured us that they will be taken into consideration and implemented. So at this time, we would like to proceed with the staff recommendation that the site plan for this building be approved. So are all members in favor of that?
Is this a vote or a receipt?
We'll just move receipt. So we'd just like to hear if there's any objections.
Yes, it will be a receipt, as Lucia said. So are there any objections? None?
No, I'll receive it.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Carolyn. Thanks very much. As I heard all the presentation and the comments, I guess this building exceeds all the accessibility requirements under the provincial legislation and the municipal requirements. And the willingness of the architects to make suggested changes, I think it will be a good start for the Brampton area to proceed with this rapid housing initiative in view of the great shortage of housing across Ontario. So I think it's a good start. That's my personal opinion. So anyway, moving on to the next report, 5.2, is an is a 2021 Accessibility Compliance Report, which will be submitted for Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility. And the presenters are Shauna Marshall, Manager of Marketing and Digital Communications, and Mikhail Carteros, Supervisor of Digital Marketing. And both Shauna and Mikhail will be presenting to us the extent to which the region has made amendments to its website accessibility and the web design. So with that, I'll pass over the floor to Shauna and Mikhail. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raj. My name is Shauna Marshall, and I am the Manager of Digital Marketing at Peel Region. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I'll be presenting this deck alongside Michael Carteros. Over to you, Michael, for an intro.
Thanks, Shauna. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Michael Carteros. I'm the Digital Marketing Supervisor, and our team is responsible for peelregion.ca and our intranet site.
Thank you. Next slide, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Michael and I were here 1 year ago when we first presented on the status of peelregion.ca accessibility. It's a pleasure to be here today and report on progress made to date. We've been implementing strategies to meet AODA compliance and continue to incorporate accessibility in our everyday. Michael's going to review a few ongoing best practices we use to deliver an accessible digital experience. Thanks. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Shauna. So we are definitely on a journey in making our site accessible. The first stop on the journey, I would say, is to, and our goal is to make our site Iota compliant. And just because that's, the first stop on our journey doesn't mean we're going to stop there. We build accessibility into everything that we do online. We know things change from a day-to-day basis, from technology to, different legislative requirements. So, while we have that goalpost, we build this stuff into our everyday work. So let me go over 3 sort of technical things that we do on the website to make it accessible. So the first one is our site, the parts that we've redeveloped so far, it's responsive. So what do I mean by that? I mean that depending on your screen that you're looking at it on, so whether it's a desktop, laptop, tablet, or phone, the content on the screen adapts to that screen real estate. And the way that we do that, we code it once, and then it kind of looks at your screen size and adapts the content accordingly. The other big thing to take into consideration there is dynamic content positioning. So what we mean by that is, you can have an image on the screen and you can have a navigation. And typically on a lot of websites, when they build it responsive, everything collapses down. And in some cases, the content loses context. So what you don't want to do is have, your navigation drop all the way to the bottom. So we take that into consideration. Another thing we started doing is programmatically disabling tabbing. So for those that don't know what tabbing is, when you use your keyboard to navigate across the site, you can press tab and it goes from one navigational item to the next. So for example, if you have a pop-up, you don't want to enable tabbing on the screen that's behind the pop-up. You want it to be in focus on the pop-up so you can navigate there. Next slide, please. Before I go on to these 3 points, I want to thank Veronica in Culture and Inclusion for raising one of the, issues that some AAC members are having with eScribe. So eScribe is a meeting management software that we use for council agendas and minutes. So once Veronica brought that to us, obviously we took it very seriously. Juliet Jackson took it very seriously. And what we did was we're working with eScribe. We had a working session with them and we gave them a list of items that they needed to address. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to address those due to staffing issues on their end. But I think they let us know through clerks yesterday that the changes should be live quite soon.
So I just wanted to let everyone know that we take that issue seriously and we're working on it. Bylaws. Obviously, we know the region has many bylaws. Before our redevelopment exercise started, we had some bylaws on the site from 1970 and 80, 90. So what we did was we've actually reduced the PDF bylaws on the site by about 4,000. And the ones that stayed up there, we've adapted to HTML that's accessible. We use plain language techniques. So we have two awesome content designers and our communications team that has been going out to the organization and really educating them about what plain language is. So, describing your link text properly, using shorter sentences, making sure it's at the appropriate grade level so that when someone's looking at content, they're absorbing it easily. We also introduced a translation tool. And I believe it covers 15 or 16 languages. So this just makes it, this looks at another aspect of accessibility, and that is like the language aspect of it. Next slide, please. And over to Shauna for some compliance.
Thank you, Michael. As of November 2021, our website's overall level of compliance is 64%. Now that spans all lines of business. It's an average across corporate, PW, human and health services. And when we talk about the overall level of compliance, we're referring to our new site structure that we implemented a few years ago, as well as updated brand and all web content such as reports, plans, forms, charts, images, PDFs, and more. So this year we've been able to advance compliance on most sections of the site, with health services being delayed due to the pandemic. And despite the pandemic setback, over the last 6 months in particular, we've been able to redevelop the paramedic site, and we'll be launching a fully compliant PRPS site early December. That's great news, followed by an updated long-term care site in spring 2022. And if you go to long-term care, it's a very outdated site. So we're very excited to bring it to modernize the section. Now, the remaining sections are under public health, and we'll be working them to tackle those sections in 2022 and 2023. In order to do that, we need to establish partnerships with all the folks, subject matter experts, across all their sections and divisions, and we will be kicking off meetings beginning January. Next slide, please. Thank you. When we met last year, we spent quite a bit of time talking about one of our largest accessibility hurdles, which was the scope of inaccessible PDFs on our site. At that time, we were reporting PDF reduction or remediation at approximately 20% complete across all sections. If we fast forward a year, we've made strides, especially in human and corporate services, which now sit at 66% and 63% complete, with the largest impact on PDF reduction being in clerks, like Michael mentioned, with more than 4,000 PDFs being transitioned to HTML. We're tackling PDF reduction for paramedics redev and long-term care redev, followed by public health next year. Next slide, please. All to say we're making progress. All right, so here's where Michael's going to highlight a few of the tactics that we've employed over the year to elevate accessibility at Peel and influence behavior change.
Thanks, Shauna. So last time we met, one of the takeaways for us was to create and make, kind of official what our position on accessibility was and what kind of our expectations were at an organizational level. So I'm happy to say we have developed a digital accessibility policy. It's still to be widely socialized. We're going to be launching a suite of accessibility resources to the organization shortly. But what this policy covers, and essentially what it says and its purpose, is so that we make digital accessibility an organizational wide thing. It doesn't fall on the web team. It's sort of everyone's responsibility. So it includes guidelines on how to, if you have a graph or if you have an image or video or form, what do you need to do to make those things accessible before they reach the website? And we're developing a series of resources to go along with that. Next slide, please. So with the help of our awesome SCI partners, we've started to employ external Sharepoint sites. And what that allows you to do is kind of bring some of the content off of peelregion.ca that might be like a niche type of content. So whether it's resources for specific providers or resources for teachers, what we're doing slowly is bringing that content off of peelregion.ca because it's not really a resident-wide type of information. And we're putting it on Sharepoint, which is accessible by nature, and giving those users access to that, that information so they can collaborate. Next slide, please. Speaking of collaboration and our view of accessibility as an organization-wide opportunity, we developed an Iota cross-functional group. So this group comprises of Marcom, culture and inclusion, and various service excellence and innovation teams. So our purpose for this group is to really look at all of the different things that we're doing across the organization with respect to accessibility, and kind of seeing where the synergies are and where we can help each other, because it's really hard for us to make a big push in this area by having separate teams go at it. So we found putting this group together, we started by creating an inventory, and we quickly realized there were a lot of things going on across the organization where that was pushing accessibility to the forefront and making things better for everyone. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. One of the items on that inventory was for us to create an intranet hub for accessibility at Peel. And the goal of this hub is to kind of consolidate all the different information that we have across the organization. So whether it's Microsoft training, whether it's culture and inclusion resources around accessibility, or whether it's how do you work with a digital specialist in marketing and communications to make your web pages accessible. So you can see a little snapshot of that here. It's still in progress, but we're going to be launching that shortly as well. Pass it over to Shauna for some more info on accessibility.
Next slide, please.
Yep.
Thank you, Michael. So you've learned a little bit about what we're doing on the website right now and tactics that we're employing internally, but this slide spotlights some of the work the digital team is doing externally to engage with residents on social media. Over the last year, we've been incorporating alt text to images on social, and we now have established standards on social media and video that include things like enlarged and bold font on subtitles for videos, and things that ensure that post copy is accessible for screen readers as part of our workflow. So this is something we're doing daily, day in and day out on the content and social team. It's definitely a journey. We're learning a lot as we get into the technology, but it's fascinating and we want to get better. Next slide, please. I believe this is our final slide. And I just wanted to say that as we continue to think about ways to foster collaboration opportunities with the AAC, in 2020, we have a few websites that we'd like to bring you on board to beta test. We also have our new accessibility Peel Sharepoint site, and we'd really like to feature accessibility videos that showcase your personal story, if you're comfortable with that, using assistive technology. We hope that this demonstrates the benefits to users and helps to bring our workplace along. Lastly, another key benefit of the accessibility Sharepoint page is that our employees have a clear escalation track for questions and issues. as well as resources to consider in the early stages of their workflow, like Michael mentioned. And we'd really appreciate to work lockstep with you on your recommendations for helpful materials or resources that you think deserve a spot on this page. Next slide, please. Well, that's it for our presentation today. Thank you so much for your time. Please, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna and Michael. You are indeed involved in a very challenging task. And I guess from the last year, since you came and made the presentation to the committee, I see a lot of additional work being done over the past year. So I will now open the floor for question and answers for you and for Michael. So, Vishal, you will keep track of the questions, please.
Yep, so on my screen here, I see that Naz and Caroline have their hand up.
Okay. Should I go first, Caroline? Okay. 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 Thank you, Shauna and Michael, for that presentation. And wow, good luck with digital design. I mean, websites. It's so complex that my heart goes out to you for that. I do find there's definitely improvements coming. Definitely things are getting much better. I am one of those individuals, Michael, you talked about using the tab key. Because I'm blind, I navigate the whole page using speech and voice. And tab allows me to sometimes, depending on whose page I've landed on, what information I'm looking for. If the headings and links are clear, then it's easy to navigate that way. So that works. But if not, I always try the tab button to just check. You mentioned popover buttons. That's the one that I find is my nightmare, because you land on it and it will say, choose your option or something like that. But I'm not able to open that window and navigate it. So can you see that portion of a website improving in the near future? And have you had any individuals contact you to let you know what is working, what's not working?
Mm-hmm. Yep, those are really great questions. Thank you. Yeah, so we try to label our links and tabs as as descriptive as possible. So there's that. We try to avoid pop-ups as much as possible as well, and embed content. No one's contacted us to say, this is working or it's not working. But I think that having this open conversation, even if you want to provide feedback to us, that would be great, because we don't know what we don't know. Like, for example, I tried to install JAWS on my computer, and I am just shocked at how difficult it is for you to use that. I don't know if you use JAWS, but any assistive technology, it's not like you can turn something on like with a switch. You need to have training to go through to be able to use that.
And thank you, Michael, for recognizing that, because it's true. JAWS it's a skill set. You have to learn how to navigate with it before. So the fact that you even downloaded it, I don't know, it was probably like a nightmare for you. So
yeah, it was. Yeah,
no,
it's
let
pretty
me
daunting.
know. If you want to email me any, Veronica can give you my email address. Sure. Email directly the page you want me to look at. Certainly, I'd be willing to do that. And
that'd be a month.
We have someone else, I believe, Azar, who's also a member. I wonder if Azar, do you use JAWS? I use Apple products, Michael, just to let you know. It's an iMac computer, and VoiceOver is the one I use.
Nice. Yeah, I use NVDA. Can you hear me?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I think Naz was asking about the screen reader. I use NVDA as a screen reader.
Oh, NVDA.
But I'm also familiar with JAWS. Yeah, they're a little different, but VoiceOver is a very different experience, and I don't know much about it. I have a question. If Naz, are you finished?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, very quickly, I think somebody else is also waiting, but since I started talking, you mentioned that some of the stuff is being moved to a SharePoint location, something like that.
Yep.
My concern is, how's the accessibility of SharePoint? Because we tried to use it in the place where I work, and my own experience was that SharePoint was terrible as far as screen reader usability was concerned. So have you come across any people who actually used it with the screen reader, and what was their experience? Thank you.
Yep. Oh, that's a great question. So SharePoint Online is the version that we're using. And you do bring up a good point where we haven't tested it with users that use assistive technology. We also haven't had any like internal questions about it, but I think we should proactively, Shauna, reach out to people within the org and see how it is for them, because we've seen vendors have suggested that their technologies, Iota compliant or accessible, and then it turns out when actually people are using it, it's not. So we'll definitely dig into that a bit more for you.
So in your process, when you are selecting products, isn't it a good idea to have an accessibility check or some kind of standard? Like for all vendors, it is a requirement under AODA that for all purchasing, the vendors must ensure. So isn't it a good idea before putting something together and later on finding out that it's not accessible, that you begin with some kind of initial assessment and then go for that solution?
Yeah, for sure. It's in our procurement policy to make sure that the applications are accessible, Iota compliant. I think the issue is, and we need to find a way to get around it, is what happens when something is delivered and it's not, right? Or can we test it from an accessibility perspective before we kind of tie the knot, sort of thing? So that's a great point.
Okay, thank you. I'm available for any kind of assistance.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Azar. So we have Carolyn asking a question.
Hi, great work you guys are doing. With the social media, if you could put in camel style hashtags. So a lot of people use hashtags just to get to the info that they need. And the camel style, it's extremely helpful for people like me with the dyslexia. So if you could put those in. And when you're doing the headings, are you doing in the table of contents at the beginning, doing a link to that heading in the document? Because you said you're using headings. So you're doing heading 1, 2, 3 or bookmarks. But are you providing a table of contents at the beginning where somebody can just find what they want to look at rather than having to keep scrolling? So I know that's something that I actually had to learn myself recently. We're doing everything a lot more accessible. And the SharePoint, that's also something I'm just learning because others have been saying about it. And apparently, they have a lot of accessibility in there through things like immersive reader and stuff. But I don't know how it is with outside screen readers. So that is something like what was mentioned. And I know Microsoft bought Dragon Naturally Speaking. So I know this is high on their list of things to do, is to make it more compatible with screen readers. But the message of, test stuff before. But great job overall, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. Lucia, did you see any more hands?
No, I do not. Oh, wait, Naz's hand is up.
Yes, thanks for noticing, Rusha. Caroline, I just wanted to answer your inquiry and maybe suggest to Michael. If I'm understanding correctly, Caroline, you talked about headings. Michael, and maybe this is what you do in your design, headings should only be a few. Because especially, I'm sure even Azar and anyone with any form of vision loss or even any other disabilities, if we navigate with few headings, we are then able to locate what we're looking for. And then the rest of the stuff should be under the headings, either in forms of links or, like Caroline said, table of contents. But once someone is allowed to browse through headings and find what they're looking for, then they go under that heading to find the specific title of what they're looking for. Does that make sense to what I'm saying, Michael? Am I explaining that correctly? And is that how you do your design?
If I could just jump in, correct.
Sure.
So when you're doing headings, you can do 9 headings.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
That's the recommended. And when you go to do headings, that's all it offers you.
That's true.
And then those links that you were talking about, those are in document bookmarks. So
whatever it's called.
It's right there when they, you know, that ability is there. It's just.
But either way,
clicking.
Those are subheadings. Those are like underneath. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, the subheading is made what's called a bookmark. So then, like you said, you can link in a document that to something that might be on page 20. But that's what you want to go look at. You don't want to have to go through the first 19 pages.
Exactly. I like your point. Headings should be few, max 9 or 10, but no more than that.
Yeah, they only offer 9 in it.
Oh, you'll be surprised. I found pages where there's hundreds.
That's somebody very techie who knows how to do that.
No, thanks for that feedback. And are you referring to like tables of contents within Word documents? Or are you referring?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So when you do if you do the table of contents at the beginning, and when you go to link, there's a drop down that says link in document, and then that's how you can get to that heading. Yeah, I got told, hey, you should be doing this. And I had to learn through YouTube how to do it. But now I understand why.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, part of our resources on the accessibility help that we're working on is how to create accessible Word documents. So we'll double check and make sure that these heading guidelines are in there.
Use the accessible checker. I didn't realize, oh my gosh, it's a click, and then you get a whole drop down to in the right panel. And that will tell you a lot of what might be missed from color contrast, wording, etc.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Rusha, you have any more members asking questions?
Hi, Raj. I don't see anybody on the RTS list.
Okay, so thanks, Michael and Shauna, as well as Naz and Caroline for asking very good questions, and Michael and Shauna provided good insights into proceeding with this work. This is a very challenging work, and I guess as long as you keep us informed, you will continue to get more suggestions from the committee members and you will continue to help us. So having said that, perhaps after maybe in the next year, in our second meeting, maybe you can come back and report us back on the progress made in this very challenging project. Actually, it is a challenging project in terms of accessibility, how the important information offered by the region of Peel and its various programs and services can be accessed by our members with disabilities. So it's a great project, so wish you all the best of luck. I had one question before I move on to the next report. There was some discussion of establishing partnerships, and you said in your presentation that you will begin to work with Peel public health next year. So perhaps my question is, have you thought about setting up a partnership with them in a manner that will help you proceed with the website relating to the public health matters in a more strategic manner? As we all know, we have gone through a very difficult time, COVID pandemic, and it does not continue to, it has reduced, but it has not stopped. So such kind of partnership, it's like a strategically, we can see, plan in for the future. So is there any thought given by your department to work, set up a partnership and begin that process in a strategic way right now?
Oh yes, it's very strategic. What we're planning to do is over the next few weeks, we're meeting with the commissioner and the MOH, Dr. Lawrence Lowe, to talk about the migration of public health. We are taking a service-based approach to enhance service deliveries to citizens. We know that citizens go to the website first for services, so that's the number one priority for us over the next year, in addition to reducing the sheer amount of content on the web. It's very immersive how much legacy content is on the website. So I think that's very strategic in how we have to pare down what information we're providing for residents. And all of that is done through a data-based approach. So understanding where residents are going on the website, what they're accessing, and taking those insights back to public health to inform them and map out the strategy for the migration of those sections.
Thanks a lot, Shauna, and I would thank Michael as well for a very interesting discussion, and we'll look forward to your next presentation maybe in the next year, and all best of luck from all of us. That being said, we now move on to our next report, 5.3, and it's a presentation on the TransHelp 40th anniversary update. Presenter is Mark Castro. He is the director of TransHelp. So the floor is all yours, Mark. If you can share with us the key highlights of your 40th anniversary. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Always appreciate coming to this group. Good afternoon, members of the Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee. As you just heard, Mark Castro, Director of TransHelp. I hope everyone's doing well, keeping safe. I'm happy to be back again. I think it's become an annual sort of update, usually in the fall. I know we're a little out closer to winter now. Can't believe we're saying that. But of course, as in previous years, I'll be providing you an update on the program and what's on the horizon. But this year marks a special milestone for TransHelp, and it's the program celebrating 40 years of service. And as part of my presentation today, of course, I'll update you on how we're marking the TransHelp 40th anniversary, and also give you a quick update on the COVID response and sort of where things are with that. And finally, an update on some key priorities that we're working on for the program post-pandemic. Next slide, please. So a big milestone for sure. The program celebrates 40 years of service to the Peel community this year. Our theme is one of, and has been one of, thank you and appreciation to our clients, our employees, their caregivers, and of course, all of our service partners. We held a special virtual celebration with our staff back in September. We were at Council, Regional Council, and did a presentation there as well. As part of the staff celebration, we shared many passenger testimonials, a photo slideshow, even had a bit of a TransHelp trivia game. The goal with that was to make staff feel appreciated. We think under the circumstances of COVID, it was important that we did that and not just sort of, skip through it. It was a successful event, and I'm glad that we were able to recognize it. Some members of our very own TransHelp Advisory Committee were also able to join that event. In addition, we've wrapped 2 TransHelp buses and special 40th anniversary messages, and they're out in service now and have been for a few months, providing service in the community, and they'll continue to be out there for at least the remainder of this year and into next year. A 40th anniversary webpage was launched featuring photos, historical milestones, and heartfelt testimonials from passengers. I'll be happy to share the link afterwards and would definitely recommend you visit this site and read some of the testimonials that are on there. They're certainly touching. Next slide, please. So the evolution of the Transhelp program over the last 4 decades, I think, is quite remarkable. And although there's, plenty more, enhancements we want to do with the service, the program's come so far in providing a better service to the community. In the early days, for example, eligibility was limited only to residents with physical disabilities. The program operated with just a staff of 13. 7 of those were drivers, serving just under 200 residents. The original fleet consisted of just 6 modified vehicles, including a couple of station wagons, believe it or not. Clients had to book a minimum of 2 weeks in advance to even have a chance at getting a ride. And as recently as just 15 years ago, it took 4 to 6 months just to access the service, to apply to the service. So that means a prospective applicant would have to wait at least 4 months to get an assessment just so the application could be considered. Next slide, please. So the service today, of course, looks much different, although not an exhaustive list. Here are some of the key changes that have happened over the last 4 decades in Transhelp's evolution. Eligibility today includes all types of disabilities: physical, cognitive, visual, and sensory. Today, we serve over 10,000 residents annually with a staff of about 100 and so employees. Today, we have over 70 regionally owned buses, plus hundreds of contracted vehicles that help deliver the service. We offer service 7 days a week, 19 hours a day. And today, just 24 hours notice is required to guarantee a trip. And a couple of years ago, we were able to introduce some limited same-day bookings with plans to continue improving the on-demand offering in the future. And I'll speak a bit about that in a moment. Today, the application process is much more streamlined. Applications are processed in 2 weeks or less, and under certain compassionate grounds, an application will get processed in 24 hours or less. So all of these changes to reflect, the program's key commitment, which is removing barriers for our residents with disabilities and being there for them in their time of need. Next slide, please. So here's a look at some key stats, and I think some of these you'll be fascinated with. I know when I saw them, I was like, I knew there's a demand for the service. Didn't know it was quite this much. This represents the impact that Transhelp has had on the community over the last 4 decades, but it also demonstrates the great need that is in the community for services like Transhelp. So over the past 2 decades, 500% trip demand is up. The number of passengers has increased by over 550%. Application volumes are up 250%, and the number of kilometers traveled annually on our vehicles is up over 200% as well. So the service continues to be delivered using a mix of our own buses and our contracted vehicles. By 2019, about 2/3 of the service was being delivered using third-party vendors. And although the demand is currently down due to the pandemic, it's expected that demand will continue to grow as the population ages. We also expect that the service delivery model of using about 30% of our own buses and 70% of contracted vehicles will continue to likely be the most sustainable model going forward for the next few years. So passengers today enjoy more regular and convenient service thanks to AODA and the Accessible Transportation Master Plan. The latter endorsed by Council a few years ago and continues to help guide Transhelp's modernization journey. Many of you would be familiar with the ATMP, as I've been to this committee many times in the past to update and obtain your feedback. So thank you to you as well for your input over the years, which has allowed us to achieve this 40th year milestone. Next slide, please. I want to take just a quick moment to acknowledge the efforts by the TransHelp team over the past 20 months to support the region's pandemic response. We've had a good chunk of our staff at the onset of the pandemic redeployed, and we have about 6 still supporting some key areas of the region, including in long-term care and health services. We've provided 2,000 plus vaccination trips for residents with transportation barriers. Shortly after the pandemic was declared, TransHelp also mobilized and set up a special COVID transportation service, just one of a handful of agencies in Ontario to do so. And to date, we've assisted 1,700 plus residents who either suspected or had COVID get to testing and isolation centers, many of them homeless. The numbers may not be humongous. However, I think the impact that the response has had on the community for some of our most vulnerable residents has been tremendous. And I wanted to publicly acknowledge the TransHelp team for their efforts during the pandemic. Next slide, please. So current state, the pandemic continues to have an impact on the program. To put things in perspective, just after COVID came to be in March 2020, TransHelp demand for service fell from an average of about 2,400 trips a day to approximately 500. We've since seen a bit of a rebound, and our current daily trips is hovering in the 1,100 to 1,200 trip mark. So although the pandemic has resulted in reduced trip demand, as I mentioned previously, I believe the need for TransHelp is expected to continue to grow as Keel's population increases and ages. We'll continue to monitor the impacts of COVID on the ridership and adjust the service levels responsibly where required. And although we expect to return to a pre-pandemic ridership at some point in the future, the timing remains the biggest uncertainty. So in the meantime, TransHelp continues meeting the needs of the community while keeping certain health and safety precautions in place to protect not only our employees, but also our passengers. We've taken the opportunity as well to review activities once delivered in person and made changes to deliver them virtually. So a good example of this that I like to share is our eligibility assessments, where in the past, prospective clients would be required to attend an in-person meeting at the TransHelp office. We've since shifted that process online and virtually, and that's saved us about $50,000 a year. And it's also made access to the program a lot more streamlined and efficient. And so we'll continue to review other activities for similar opportunities where we believe that the passenger experience can be improved. Next slide, please. So finally, my last slide, a quick look ahead at some key priorities for the program as we move into a post-COVID world. Staff will continue to monitor trip demand and revise our service levels where we think it's best to meet the needs of residents. The Accessible Transportation Master Plan continues to be our foundational roadmap in our modernization strategy and our program work plan. Given the pandemic, however, and the pausing of so many activities, we believe an update to that plan is necessary and probably responsible at this time. So we want to ensure that any longer term impacts from COVID are considered as part of our strategic framework. And transit and transportation has been one of those sectors that has been the greatest impacted sector throughout COVID. We're planning to complete a review of our plan, of the ATMP plan in 2022. It'll sort of be a mini review. It won't be a full master plan review. At which point I'll return to Regional Council and the Accessibility Advisory Committee to provide an update on the outcome of that review, but also to solicit your feedback before we move forward with any changes, however minor they might be. So over the next 3 to 5 years, we will be guided by 3 main outcomes while we run and operate the program. The first one is Where are the opportunities for integration with our partners, with our transit partners, with MyWay, with Brampton, with Go Transit, looking for opportunities where we can, improve or create more seamless travel experience for everyone. Increasing and enhancing our online presence, leveraging all the technology that's available to ensure we're operating as best we can, but also that the passenger experience is one that is seamless and efficient as well. And of course, improving the passenger experience. You've heard me say that a few times throughout this presentation, and it's something you'll hear me say again. It will, and should guide all of our decisions. Things like, automating our payment system, introducing technology that allows passengers to track their vehicles and communicate with dispatch in real time, and eliminate the second fare when using, multiple buses and multiple transit services as part of a single trip, and increasing the availability of on-demand travel, because people want to travel, they want to get up and decide they want to get out today, and they want to be able to get a trip on that day. So we certainly have a huge focus on those areas. Technology plays a big part of that. And next year we'll be sort of laying out that foundation so that we can start bringing in these initiatives that, to me, are big game changers in the way the service is delivered. And then lastly, I want to let you know that we're also exploring a TransHelp electric bus pilot for 2022. We have a unique opportunity to leverage external funding that's been made available, and at the same time demonstrate some innovation and leadership in this area. If successful with our funding application, which we've just sent out in the last couple of weeks, we would be one of just a small group of specialized transit services in Canada with electric buses in their fleet. And of course, at the same time, we'd be contributing to the region's reduction of greenhouse gases, however small or big the impact may be. So I look forward to returning to the AAC with an update on this project as it evolves. And if we are successful in getting the funding and ultimately going out to tender for the vehicles, I would love to come back to this group for some input on the design elements of those new buses. That's my presentation. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. Sorry about that. Sorry, yes, that concludes my presentation. My computer just froze here, my apologies. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments. And again, I want to thank everybody on this committee for your input over the years, and really you are part of this milestone for TransHelp, 40 years. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. It has been a great presentation, and all I can say that your TransHelp is a great asset to the community. I think I was looking at your numbers, and the numbers stated that the trip demand has increased by 500%, and the number of passengers has increased by 567%. I mean, what else could one ask for? But at the same time, I think you have, as a volunteer again in the community, I can say your service has been very helpful during the COVID pandemic in terms of providing transportation to seniors as well, in some cases, in not only disabled persons, but in general to the whole community. It has been a great service. And before I open for question, I want to just say one thing, that your electric bus pilot, I think, would be something we will be looking forward. Issue of climate change, I think, is important to all of us. So with having said that, I will now open for question and answers for the members. Thank you.
Raj, I see Naz has her hand up.
Yes, Rochelle. Do you hear me, Rochelle?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Naz.
Thank you. Oh, Mark, that was a fabulous presentation. I remember being at your office for the 35th anniversary. So it's hard to believe 5 more years went by, and I believe there was cake at that time. So where's the cake? That's number one. But yeah, seriously, TransHelp, it's like, it's like I've grown old with TransHelp. It's fabulous, starting from the Stone Ages to almost the digital age of 2020s. So congratulations on everything TransHelp has done and improved. And you've definitely incorporated all our suggestions along the way. Please do convey to your staff our best for what they did during COVID, giving the homeless transportation, taking for COVID tests, for the vaccine, and so on. So please do convey our congrats on that. And yes, as Raj said, I too am looking forward to a smart bus appearing at my door. I would love that. We all need to get involved in this climate change to improve. My only little query is, Mark, I've been playing with the website and I'm not finding it as accessible. But like I said, I'm only playing with it right now and I'm scared that I may wipe up my information or disturb. I'm finding it difficult to fill in the address where I want to go. So maybe that's something you could just convey to someone, a staff who could call me and we could walk through to see what issue I'm facing using VoiceOver. If anyone else has used the digital website here, maybe they could talk about it. But I'm finding some issues with it. So, but that's all it is. I'm sure we can sort that out. So all the best. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Neza. If I can respond. So before I respond to that, let me just say the first opportunity we get to get a big cake that we can slice up into many slices, we will do that. And I will make sure a slice gets to each of you.
Thank you.
On the website, yeah. So I think you're referring to the online booking system that we were able to launch last March. No, this March. So it hasn't even been a year. Certainly some tweaks and enhancements that we're finding we have to make. I will get someone to follow up with you. What I can say is it's relatively an off-the-shelf product. So that's where we're running into some challenges and we're having to sort of go back to the vendor and make some enhancements and tweaks. But certainly we'll have someone follow up with you and see what we can do to rectify that on the back end. So thank you for that feedback.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yes, Carolyn, I see your hand.
I'm just wondering if you now go to Kipling. Not that I don't use TransHelp, but I've heard when people had to go to Sheridan Mall or to the hospital center across the street, I've always heard like a lot of issues with that. So have you gone into Kipling? I know they've had a lot of renos and accessible stoppage there.
Yeah, no, thanks for that question, Caroline. I believe we are going to Kipling. I'll don't take my word for it. I know there was lots of construction happening there, so there were some temporary locations put into place. But the idea, and when I spoke about the integration piece earlier, like really where we, the crossing boundaries and borders, that's always been a pain point, and I know that, and you know that, and anyone you've talked to knows that, trying to go into Toronto or trying to go into Oakville. So I think, part of the goal that we're trying to achieve is how do we remove some of that and make it seamless. So one way is using subway stations that are accessible makes total sense, right? So if somebody has to take a TransHelp bus from from Mississauga, it's easy for them to, instead of leaving them at a mall to then connect with another Wheel-Trans bus, connect them to the subway if that is the best, right? So definitely.
Excellent. Kudos on all the work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, Rusha? I don't see any hands.
Yep, same here. There's no speakers on the RTS list.
Okay, so thanks, Mark, again. And can I have a member to move the receipt of this report?
I'll do that for you, Caroline.
Thanks, Caroline.
My hand there, Raj, Caroline, if you'd like.
Sorry, Naz?
I was shaking my hand to receive this presentation.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see that. I was just clicking that. Thanks anyways. So we move on to the next item, 5.4, which is an accessibility planning program update for information. And I guess it will be presented by Veronica, one of our staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Can't hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay now?
Hi, Veronica. We can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll just give a very brief update on the report that you have before you. Obviously, the majority of the focus since our last meeting has been on the filling in and preparing for our provincial compliance report, which is due at the end of the year. You saw the extensive work that our folks in digital marketing and communications are doing with regards to meeting the website compliance. So I just wanted to let you know that we will be filing compliance on that report. That report consists of 25 questions. The only one that we will obviously be filing non-compliance to is the one related to website and website compliance. So all the other 24 questions, we are in compliance, and we will be filing obviously non-compliance for that one question. A lot of work has undertaken, but as you saw the presentation from Shauna and Michael, there's still a lot more work to be done. And as I mentioned in my last meeting, compliance goes above and beyond just meeting, the requirements of this standard. It is obviously all these initiatives that we are undertaking to elevate accessibility and to ensure that all our communications are accessible. Having said that, the other update that I have for you is we will be recognizing IDPD this year. We will be having an internal virtual event once again. We'll be hosting a lunch and learn for staff, and we've decided to focus this year on invisible disabilities. So the theme of the lunch and learn, you just bear with me. So the theme of the lunch is learn is I am more than my disability. And the session will contain sharing videos, and through these videos, we hope to have an intimate dialogue with staff around mental health and how the pandemic has exacerbated these realities, and how there's still stigma. Stigma is still a barrier as it pertains to invisible disabilities. So this will be the focus of our our acknowledging International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd. That's my brief update. I am open to questions or comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Veronica. You're doing a great job. I read the report, and we look forward now for the International Day celebration. So any members have any questions?
Hi, Raj. I see Shamila and Maureen have their hand up.
Okay. Hi, Shamila.
It's exciting, the International Disability Day, and the videos, you said it's going to be virtual, so I couldn't visualize how much of a virtual, so we have to attend a meeting or something. If you could explain it a little bit more. Thank you.
Sure, Shamila. Yes, it's a lunch and learn for staff. And at this lunch and learn, we plan on sharing some videos with them, to highlight some of these invisible disabilities. Some of them will be to break down stigma around mental health illness. So we want to set an environment for staff where it's where they feel comfortable to possibly share their experiences with perhaps themselves or as caregivers to persons with mental health disabilities. I know that provides a bit more clarity.
Thanks, Veronica. Can I have Maureen Would you like to ask a question?
Maureen, I believe you're muted.
There you go. Hear me okay? All right. I'm not sure whether this is the right area to mention this or not, or to ask this question, but it's my understanding of the AODA that when the region puts in or it's having any kind of buildings made, and that our committee looks at the site plans. Is that still correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct, Maureen.
So with the presentation we had on the building that is going to be renovated on 5 Rutherford, did our committee look at the site plan there?
So if I can be clear, the site plans are brought before the committee. And so what the presentation you received today was exactly that. It was a site plan review of that project. Now, the AODA does stipulate that, we have to review the external site of the projects that the committee chooses.
So Raj, maybe my question. Yeah.
Sorry, Maureen, did I get cut off? I just all of a sudden saw everybody off.
Yes, you did. So
Maureen, would you like to repeat your question? Maybe I can ask Veronica if I can hear you properly.
Sure. I wanted to know if Veronica answered it a little bit by saying the presentation today by the group was considered as a site plan look at by the committee under the AODA. I'm more familiar with just looking at the site plan before, basically, and it has to be approved by the region. I'm more familiar with looking at the site plan as a committee, just the site plan, and then a presentation would be made by the parties concerned about more description in regards to what accessible areas are being done and that kind of thing, as an add-on at another date. So I just wanted to be clear on how it's handled, because I'm more concerned about that we didn't spend much time on the site plan where the accessible parking is, where the garbage is, the whole outside of the building. I'm concerned that we didn't spend much time on that.
So, Veronica, would you?
Yes, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I think I got disconnected.
Veronica, your voice is very, very low.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Yes, it's better.
Okay, I apologize. I think the connection just dropped. I didn't quite catch, unfortunately, Maureen's comment, and I apologize.
You want me to repeat it, Veronica?
Sure.
Okay. From my understanding, from when you talked just before we got the technical difficulties, you had said that you believe the presentation that the organization gave today, the very first one about 5 Rutherford, was the site plan look at for the AODA. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that was the intent of that presentation. It was a site plan review.
Okay. I would rather see it that we as the committee see the site plan only and comment on that first. And then if the organization wants to present to us like the presentation about all the things that they're going to be doing and that to make it accessible, I would rather see it that way. Simply because with a site plan, you're able to see where the accessible parking is and some of the other grades of the property and that kind of thing, which I wasn't able to see on their presentation.
Veronica.
Thank you. We can take that back, and perhaps it could be a matter of bringing back the working groups that were specific to or establishing moving forward a working group specific for site plan approval. We did try this in the past, and I think the biggest hindrance was that it was being presented twice because not everybody was at that working group. So then the presentation had to be repeated at the formal AAC meeting. But we can have a look at, changing the process and seeing what best works for the committee. I do understand that today's presentation was kind of not enough time allocated for a proper review. So I'll take that back. Thanks, Maureen.
Yeah, and you're just, is there not a subcommittee that maybe looks at the site plans from our group?
Right now, as far as the region, I know other municipalities do strike subcommittees because there are a lot of site plans that they go through. At some point, it was decided that our site plans, because we don't have very many, they're far and few, be brought to the formal AAC meeting, and hence the process that we have right now. And that was what the intent was with today's presentation. But again, I can take that back, and if it's the wish of the committee to strike a working group for site plan review, we could take that into consideration.
Can I just add that I'm totally in support of what Maureen is suggesting? Because to do a fair job and recommendation, we should be able to review it as much as possible before making a recommendation, especially when it's as complex as it was today and very. It's a big project. It wasn't just like one, like a paramedics, what did we call it? Little, satellite offices, right? Satellite offices. That was different. That's why we had, I think one suggested that when it's satellite offices, it will just come to the committee. But for any full site plans like today, it should definitely come to, and I did bring that up when I was asking my question. So thanks, Veronica. Please make a note and let's review that for the future. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Naz. So it seems to me that we are receiving Veronica's report, but with a recommendation that the site plan committee, which was part of subcommittee of the AAC in the past, should be revived again. Is that?
And not only the site plan, I would suggest look at all the subcommittees, if what works for this year, but definitely for the committees going forward in 2022 for the new committees, that be established and become a practice.
So today, Maureen's question was pertaining to the site planning committee because it was connected to the earlier presentation. So we can include that in with regards to reviving all the subcommittees. I guess we will have to maybe this matter to be discussed again as an independent item, maybe at the February meeting, and then decide how the members feel about it.
I don't know. It just seems to be a very slow process to do that. Because when is our next meeting?
Well, our next meeting is in February. So would you like this? First of all, let's talk about the site planning group. That's what we are discussing today. Would you like that group to be deactivated maybe from as early as possible? Is that what would you like to suggest?
Yeah,
sure.
I'd like us to do that just because, you know, coming from the AAC for Caledon, we had a really good process. It was quite, it was fast for people, and you know, I can see that being something that would work for Peel as well. Although I am assuming that if there is a building going that we looked at today, that it would also go through what, the Brampton AAC too, would it? The site plan? Am I correct on that?
It's a regional.
Thanks, Maureen. I think it's a good suggestion. Certainly, as it is arising from one of our presentations in today's meeting, we can certainly include in receiving Veronica's report that one of the outcome was that this design, the public design of public spaces and the site planning committee be revived, and we can ask the members if all are in favor, and we can put that recommendation in our minutes. So we have a recommendation here that the site planning committee be revived again, as was done in the past. Are all the members in favor of that?
Yes.
What do we do? Put our hands up, or?
Perhaps you can ask for objections only. This way you'll get a clear answer.
Only any objections?
Raj, we do have Juliet Jackson and Commissioner Sheehy on the RTS list.
So we would, if there are no objections, so we would I'll ask a member to receive Veronica's report by adding as well that, you know, the site planning committee be revived.
Sorry to interrupt, Raj. We have Juliet Jackson and Commissioner Sheehy on board to speak.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see you, Julia's hand. So go ahead, Julia.
That's okay. I really appreciate the conversation that we're having right now. If we could actually receive this as direction, so basically give staff direction to come back to the next meeting in the new year with a plan on how we can propose moving forward with addressing site plans to ensure that we're following through with the AODA. We want to make sure that we are taking a broad look at all of the other committees that we have, subcommittees of council that may play a role in this. So the plan that we want to come back with will be comprehensive and will ensure that we meet the needs of what this committee wants to put in place, but that we're not duplicating efforts. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Juliet. I think it's an excellent suggestion. So at this time, I will ask. I ask a member to move the receipt of Veronica's report along with this with a additional recommendation that the department come back to us in the next year with a plan with regards to the revival of the subcommittees that we had in the past.
Sure.
Anyone opposed?
Raj, sorry to interrupt again. We had Commissioner Sheehy on board, but I see her hand is down. I just want to confirm if she wants.
Thank you very much. I was basically going to say the same thing that Juliet said, probably not in such an eloquent way. And I just wanted to confirm that we're looking at the process going forward, because the project that was presented to you earlier is part of the Rapid Housing Initiative. So if we have to retake the process, we might run into difficulties in terms of acquiring the funding. So we are talking about the process going forward.
Thanks a lot. I think it's a good suggestion. So as a process going forward, we look at the committees, but at this time, whatever recommendation was passed with regards to the rapid housing, we'll proceed with that. And I'll ask a member to move the receipt of Veronica's report along with the suggestions made by staff with regards to the revival of the committees. Any opposed? Well, the recommendation is carried, and so are we receiving Veronica's report. Now we move on. Do you have a mover, Rusha, to receive Veronica's report?
No, we don't. We have Naz.
Yes.
Okay, we have Naz. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So we are running a little bit late, so we will be brief with regards to the next item, communications 6.1. This is an email by James Walton, a resident of City of Brampton, in which he cites the challenges faced by Ontarians living with disabilities. And it's a great email, and some of the situations were appear to be very important. So at this time, I will ask a member to move the receipt of this report. Thank you. Thanks, Chairman. So moving along, other business on the update on the health standard and the public consultations. I will be brief because last time I provided a lengthy report. So today I will simply advise the members that the committee has been deactivated because consultations were completed on September 13th. So we have started meeting again. The response to the report and its recommendation has been quite good from the large sector of community organizations, including disability organizations and the institutions. So we are very pleased that we have good input from this consultation, and we are continuing to meet almost every month. As the time frame was set up by the ministry, it will go up to at least early March. It will review each and every comment made by the public is taken into consideration before we finalize the report and submit it to the minister. So at this time, I have nothing more to add, that we are now active again. So with that, I will ask a member to. So there is no receipt here. Sorry, it was other business. So this concludes our today's meeting, and our next meeting will be next year on February the 17th, same time. So I wish everyone a safe and good time in the upcoming holiday season. Having said that, could a member ask for the adjournment of the meeting?
I'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you again. It was a great meeting. Good discussion took place on all the points. So have a happy holiday time, and we'll see you again, reconvene again in February of next year. Thank you very much.